We are more than a week away from this game, so I understand this is a very early preview, but despite Oregon hosting rival Oregon State for the Civil War, Penn State's on a bye, and I think this game is extremely important for a variety of reasons. So I want to spend a few minutes of my time giving you an early preview and what I think could decide this game for both the Ducks and the Nittany Lions, and why this is important. It's important for Oregon. Don't get that mistaken. But this is particularly important, I think, for Penn State due to the preseason hype and their schedule. And I think that is the perfect place to start out. Before we resume this segment, some great and free ways to support this channel are liking the video, watching it all the way through, commenting your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear your analysis, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, and also hitting the notification bell. That way you can get notified when we go live or release new content. And don't just hit the notification bell for the channel. That's very helpful. But what's also helpful and free and useful to you, if you are a diehard fan of a specific team and want to get notifications whenever I make content about a specific team, not just my content in general, well, we have playlists for every Power 4 college football team, so the notification bell on any of those playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, there are ways to do so in the description, and you can sign up as a paid member. Penn State hosts Oregon September 27th in their first whiteout matchup against a big brand and against a ranked and a team that will likely finish the season ranked. You never know, but I'm 99.9, screw it, I'm 100% sure that Oregon's going to finish the season ranked. In 2023, their whiteout game was against Iowa, who barely finished the year ranked, but was not a power-rated top 25 team. Last year in 2024, it was against a Washington team who went 6-7, wasn't power-rated top 25. In 2022, it was a 9-4 Minnesota team that, as you would guess, not power-rated top 25. 2021 Auburn, same thing. 2020, no whiteout. It was the COVID year. 2019 was the last time Penn State actually played a quality opponent in the whiteout. Michigan, who finished 9-4 that year, ranked top 20 in the final AP and coaches poll, and was power rated anywhere from really 15th to 10th, depending on where you looked, in what was a very strong college football season. The last time that Penn State hosted a top 10 team in the whiteout, not just a team who finished ranked top 25 in power ratings or rankings, or at the time was ranked pretty high. No, the last time that Penn State played an elite team, or a team that at the time or at the end of the year was considered close to that category at the bare minimum, was 2018 Ohio State, who went 13-1, won the Big Ten. They beat Penn State by a point that year. The last time Penn State beat a team of that caliber was 2016 Ohio State in the whiteout. This is a huge game because Penn State has not experienced a whiteout that mattered this much since 2018, 2016. And I would argue this whiteout matters even more for a variety of reasons. This is the first time Penn State under James Franklin has been given true national championship expectations. And Penn State, I think, has openly embraced those. I think in prior seasons, their, whether it's staff or roster, has been focused on smaller things. Still big things in the grand scheme of things, beating Ohio State, beating Michigan, or winning the Big Ten. But there's never been open national championship talk surrounding Penn State until this year. Even in 2023, when Penn State received some preseason votes to go 12-0, or to at least beat one of Ohio State or Michigan and win the Big Ten, no one was really talking about them as a national title contender that year. They were either talking about Ohio State, Michigan, or Georgia, and probably those who picked Penn State were mostly thinking that it was a lock for Georgia to win it all anyway, which, hindsight being 2020, was not the case at all. I think the Big Ten actually fielded the best teams at the top by a mile that year, including the Oregon Ducks, who were wonderful in 2023. And for a minute, for a large portion of the season, actually, 2023 Penn State was ranked ahead of Georgia, rated ahead of Georgia in FPI. Case in point, this is the biggest season Penn State's ever had under Franklin, with the most consequences, with the most pressure, and this is, I would say, the biggest home game without hindsight, because 2016 was pretty big, but without hindsight, just looking in the present, this is the biggest home game that James Franklin has ever had at Penn State. This is Penn State's biggest home game in well over a decade, if not decades. Their goal is to win it all. They want to beat Ohio State for the first time since 16, and they will have to do it on the road if they do so, or in a neutral venue if they don't, and rematch with them in Indianapolis or in the playoffs, and that's not a guarantee. If you are going to beat Ohio State, or win it all, or win the Big Ten, and you are the Nittany Lions, and I know we're focusing on Penn State here, but I wanted to start off with that. I will get to Oregon, and we'll also get to the matchup here. If you want to beat Ohio State and win it all, you have to win this game, unless Oregon is a super team. And that's where we will start to segue into Oregon, is by the metrics. They might be a super team. Oregon could be really elite this year. I've been high on them for months, telling you, the viewer, if you've been watching the channel, and I hope you have. If not, again, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and make sure to comment your thoughts as this video goes on. I really love to hear your comments. But I think that while Oregon's been underrated in the preseason, well, I've been impressed with Dante Moore. Remember last year how Ohio State pancaked Oregon, and that was the reason everyone sadly forgot about them, even though they shouldn't have? Well, Oregon beat that Ohio State team earlier in the year. And it was because Ohio State hadn't made some changes yet that helped them win it all. But saying it was only because Ohio State wasn't prepared is a little bit of an excuse. Part of that is correct, that Jim Knowles hadn't completely figured out what Ohio State's defense needed to be, that Ryan Day was a little bit too run happy, and they learned throughout the year, and eventually won it all. Part of the reason Oregon straight up beat Ohio State last year is because of travel across thousands of miles in multiple time zones, and Ohio State was sort of hit by a bus by the environment, and you could tell by some of the false starts, by how Will Howard handled some snaps and some really pressure-filled and key moments. That was a bit overwhelming for Ohio State. And with hindsight, knowing that Ohio State was the much better team than Oregon having a really good game plan, stealing a possession away, and the crowd and environment and the travel really overwhelming Ohio State explains some of the really uncharacteristic performances of Ohio State's defense and of Will Howard on that night, where Oregon won, and that ultimately punched their ticket really to the Big Ten championship game, to the playoffs, and they were Big Ten champions. Oregon's looking to repeat, and they very realistically can. They have the quarterback, they have the offensive line, analytics say they have the defense, they have the receivers, the tight ends, they have it all. They're uber talented. There's a reason they are plus 700 to win it all on FanDuel. Penn State's plus 650. But if you are Penn State, with what you returned, with how you are playing host here, Oregon has to travel to your house, and it's not going to be easy to get there after they land the plane. It's going to be long, it's going to be exhausting, and that stadium, Beaver Stadium, I've been to it before, not for a whiteout game, but for a noon game. It's loud. The place shakes when the fans want it to shake, and believe me, for this game, it will be shaking. This is a must-win for Penn State. If you do not win this game, again, unless Oregon is a super elite team, you are probably not beating Ohio State. Lose this game, you're staring down the barrel of 10-2. Win it, you're probably looking at another 11-1 season. You could even go 12-0. And if you win this game, then I would, depending on how you win this game, punch the ticket that Penn State's going to win it all. Because as good as I thought Oregon would be in the preseason, they're a little bit better than I thought they would be in the preseason, even though they haven't played much of anyone. And I still have questions about Texas, Georgia, Ohio State. I'm out on Clemson in terms of winning it all. I'm still kind of out on Alabama in terms of winning it all, and after watching how Clemson's performed and how LSU's performed, I don't really think LSU's a national title contender. The list of title contenders, I think, is a little bit shorter than most people thought entering this year. But enough of setting the backdrop, which is most of this video anyway. It's an early preview. I still want to do film study on these teams a little bit. I want to really think about this before I give a full preview and prediction here, just giving an early preview. But there are some factors that will determine this game, so I want to lean into that right now. Oregon and Penn State have very different outside factors here. Incredibly different outside factors. And what I mean by that is Penn State's facing pressure. I think the pressure's on Penn State here more than it is on Oregon. But Oregon has the long travel, and they have a stadium that they have never been to before. Ever. They've never experienced a whiteout. So, I would say the outside factors go Penn State's way here. I think we can pretty much entirely agree on that, I would say. Now, a factor I didn't bring up here, but one I want to talk about, is quarterback. I didn't bring it up here because I think that with how these teams are built and the matchups they have, that quarterback may not be as big of a factor as many of your national analysts will paint it to be, for a variety of reasons that we will get to as we go down the list of key factors to the left on your screen, if you're watching. So, quarterback I want to discuss here because Drew Aller and Dante Moore almost couldn't be different in their starts, according to efficiency metrics. Dante Moore has looked like an NFL quarterback. I would say after some of these starts, I'm teetering on saying that he is an NFL quarterback. Why am I not shifting all my chips in the middle of the table on him quite yet, even though I'm very close to doing so, is Oregon's system is one of the most quarterback-friendly systems in America. And when Oregon has a talent advantage, especially at home, they will always roster you. They just will. I want to see how he plays against Penn State before I fully buy in on the fact that he might be one of the best QBs in the country. But I'm mostly bought in. I said in the preseason I thought he'd be a top 15 quarterback. Think it's more likely he's going to be top 10 at the end of the year. 657 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, a pick. His quarterback efficiency rating's an 85.7. He's completing 78.1% of his passes. He hasn't been sacked yet. He has a 197.3 passer rating, 34 rushing yards. And the touch on his throws, how he's able to deliver the ball accurately in tight windows off platform, his pocket awareness is already awesome. There have been plays, I especially note Northwestern because that's the toughest team they've played so far, especially defensively, and it was on the road, early kickoff, different outside factors that didn't help Oregon, where he was able to roll out of the pocket, evade defenders, didn't take a sack, and found receivers, whether it was Sadiq, Moore, Kyler Casper. He found them down the field. Jamari Johnson, transfer from Louisville, now Oregon Duck tight end. He's been able to do it all. Dante Moore has. Contrast this or compare it with Drew Aller, who through 3 games is 626 passing yards. He's completing 64.8% of his passes with a 137.3 passer rating, 4 touchdowns, a pick, a 38.3 QBR, which is 111th, 1 interception, 7.1 yards per attempt, 27 rushing yards. He's taken 3 sacks. That is quite the juxtaposition in quarterback play so far. That is one thing that I am not going to kid myself on or lie to you on. Makes me a little bit nervous for Penn State in this game. But, again, the reason I didn't bring it up as a key factor is I want to give you some perspective on the difference between those numbers and the fact also that it's early. This is September 17th at the time of this recording. This is not October, late October. It's not November. We haven't even entered conference play yet. Well, Oregon has, and we will be this weekend. But Most teams still have not played their conference games. Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, ACC, you name it. Penn State, in watching them, has definitely upgraded at wide receiver. You still see the upside from Aller. The defense, I would say, is up there with Texas's. Those two are just up there. Coordinator, personnel, watching them on film. And Penn State's defense, I would actually say, has its issues at certain points. But this is going to be a top 5 defense, guaranteed, I would say, for Penn State. It looks really good. They've been rotating a bunch. You get the point. Aller has been the one factor, along with at times receiver, that has been concerning. And I don't exactly know what to come away with there, because his QBR is so bad that either he has very truly regressed and is even worse than he was in 2023, where, by the way, in 2023, Aller's QBR in his first 3 games averaged out to be in the 70s. Didn't throw a single pick, had a completion percentage that was around, upper 70s, or not upper 70s, like low 70s, upper 60s. He had more passing yards. He was hitting the ball downfield more, took fewer sacks. I know for a fact this Penn State wide receiver core is better than that 2023 one. I know their O-line is better. I know their running backs are better. Tight end is probably a push. Defense, we'll see if it's better. That 2023 Penn State defense was mean. I know this one's better coordinated. I don't know if it's more talented. We'll have to see. And Drew Aller that year was, in big games against wonderful defenses, he was atrocious. He was even atrocious against some not-so-great teams such as Northwestern or Rutgers. He was pretty bad in, for example. Ole Miss, not a really good defense. He didn't even complete 50% of his throws that year. Either Aller really has regressed, because we've seen this come up for 3 games, or Penn State's played absolutely no one. They're outscoring their opponents by an average of around 40 points per game, and they're saving things for Oregon. And as for Oregon, Dante Moore's looked fantastic. I think that he is real. I really do. But this will be the toughest environment he's ever played in. This will be the toughest test he's ever faced. It will be, again, hostile. The corners and safeties will finally have the athleticism to compete with his receivers. This is the toughest defense that Penn State, or not Penn State, but it's the toughest defense Penn State's had since at least 2023. I think this defense is better than last year's. And this is the toughest defense Oregon will be playing since the Rose Bowl last season. I think that Ohio State defense is probably better than this Penn State defense, but I also think the Ohio State defense that played Oregon and Autzen is probably worse than this Penn State defense will be at home. So keep those things in mind there. I think that quarterback, well, it's definitely a factor here, and I could be wrong. Maybe Aller really is that bad, and we figure that out in this game, and maybe Moore is just that good. The difference between those two, based on preseason research and metrics and how vanilla Penn State's playbook has looked, and the fact that whenever they have a 2-minute drill, they basically get down the field in scoring range and Aller looks good again, tells me I think they're hiding some concepts for this game. And there's something fishy there. I don't think Aller is quite as bad as the metrics suggest. And I don't quite know if Dante Moore is going to replicate the performances he has had in the first 3 weeks against this defense. I think it would be doubtful. So I think there are other factors at play that will determine this game instead of just quarterback. I think that both defensive backfields, with how they match up against the receivers, could completely implode, or they could do a pretty good job. That is a matchup I'm very curious to see. How do the Oregon and Penn State receivers do against the, Duck and Nittany Lion secondaries? That's something I'm very fascinated in seeing. I feel like that's the battle I know the least about, if I'm being honest. So let's start off with the rushing attack. Which backs and which offensive line have more Big Ten strength? Both have looked relatively impressive. Both have had moments where they've struggled a bit relative to competition. Penn State did not look good against Nevada running the ball, but ever since then they've looked much better. Oregon had some struggles against Northwestern running the ball until really the end of the game when they finally wore them down. I love what both the Ducks and Nittany Lions have at running back. You obviously have Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen for Penn State as your 1-2 punch. For Oregon, DeRay Hill Jr., Noah Whittington, Jaden Lamar, Jay Harris. We haven't heard much from Mackay Hughes. I don't exactly know why that is, but they've showcased a lot of depth running for 13 touchdowns, 7 yards per carry on the season. Penn State's averaged 5.5 yards per carry on the year with 9 touchdowns. Both have already eclipsed over 500 rushing yards. I like what I see out of both offensive lines. I know that for Oregon, you got Harkey, Pregnon, World, Uli, and Lololu. And for Penn State, you have Dawkins, Ione, Dunko, Cousins, you have Shelton, and then Rucci. I mean, these offensive lines and running back rooms, including the quarterbacks too, because they haven't ran Aller, but Aller, based on last year, he had some success running against Oregon, and he slimmed down a bit, and I think he's faster this year. He'll run. You will see him run against Oregon. And based on Dante Moore and some of the speed I saw against Northwestern, you could definitely run him as well. And he already has 34 rushing yards, doesn't have a touchdown yet, but it's averaging around 5 yards per carry. You can run Dante Moore too. He can scramble. These rushing attacks are among the nation's most productive. They have some of the highest potential out of all rushing attacks. So which push around their opposing fronts more? Which fronts are able to dig in and consistently run? Maybe open up for a big play, but I think more importantly, just consistently run for that 4 or 5 yards per carry. And if you can get more than that, well, that's great. Receiver separation. Both of these teams, I think especially Penn State, given the circumstances and how their playbook has looked, they're going to want to attack deep. I think that both of these teams, especially Penn State, will try to play off the run and try to break these defenses open. This is going to be a game where, given the crowd and the stakes, momentum is going to be very important. Momentum's going to be precious. So which receivers, including tight ends, can get better separation on these defensive backs, linebackers, safeties, extend drives, and get down the field and also make big explosive plays? I know that I've talked and praised a lot surrounding Penn State's wide receiver core: Trevor Pena, Devontae Ross, Kyron Hudson. Luke Reynolds looks ready to be the next great tight end for Penn State. Khalil Dinkins is someone I've been impressed by. For Oregon, I've been extremely impressed by Kenyon Sadiq, Jamari Johnson. I love Decorian Moore. I think Malik Benson has taken a real step forward, has been well developed by Ross Douglas, Oregon's wide receiver coach, came in from Syracuse. Jeremiah McClellan's looked good. Gary Bryant Jr. has two receiving touchdowns. These are two of the best teams in America. And in the preseason, I picked both to rematch in Indy. I would still pick that intuitively right now, based on how they play and their schedule. Though Ohio State in beating Texas and Michigan being shaky as we expected, but still shaky nonetheless, means that if Ohio State, if they continue to win and say they beat Penn State, they're essentially a guarantee to go to Indy. So intuitively, I'd expect a rematch here because they're the two best teams. And this is just a little side tangent, but to further describe how important this game is, how big it is. But Ohio State's in the same tier with these two teams as well. Defensive tackles. This is an area where I'm going to come out and say right now I would strongly lean Penn State. Looking at Zane Durant, looking at Alonzo Ford Jr., what Penn State has at that defensive tackle position is impressive. I think it is their biggest and most physical defensive tackle group in quite some time. You also got, Xavier Gillum there. We already talked about Alonzo Ford Jr., Ty Blanding. They've rotated a ton on the D-line. And on top of Denai Dennis-Sutton, who's more of a big, traditional, run-stopping D-end, you have Chaz Coleman, who I think is a really elite pass rusher. Amari Campbell leads the team in total tackles with Tony Roas behind him. King Mack at safety, incoming transfer from Alabama, has looked good. I mean, they've been rotating everywhere on defense. I imagine they're going to shore up their starting lineup, and they're 2 deep and 3 deep over this bye week. Oregon's defensive line's really good. Like, I'm not going to deny that whatsoever. Their strength is defensive end, though, with Tatum Tuioti, Mateo Uyunglele. On the inside, they have players such as Amari Washington, who I think's looked very impressive, Bear Alexander. You also got to keep in mind players such as Aiden Breland, Terrence Green, and Tioni Gray. They're deep there, too. In fact, in terms of the sole number of players, I think at D tackle who are 300 pounds or more, Oregon is more than Penn State. But Penn State's D tackles, from preseason research and what I've seen, I think are the more proven unit. And it's very important that either Oregon proves me wrong there, or that Oregon maybe compensates it using their elite DNs and linebackers, which we'll get to in a second. But a lot of these Big Ten games, the bigger ones, the more important ones, are not just decided by the trenches, they're decided by interior trench play. It's not always the case, but I do trust Penn State there at this moment more. And I think, as we've discussed, while Oregon right now looks better on the outside, and especially at quarterback, we don't know enough about these teams yet. I mean, Oregon themselves, I think Oregon's hiding things for this game. I've said that for Penn State, especially because they've been struggling, and I think Oregon definitely dipped into the cookie jar a bit to blow out Oklahoma State because they felt attacked there. But there will be new looks from both of these teams in this big game here. Linebacker, the final thing I want to talk about, and then we'll close it out here. Linebacker is key for both of these teams. Bryce Betcher for Oregon, Amari Campbell, Tony Roas for Penn State. Who's able to plug the gaps, make elite plays, maybe bait Moore or Aller to throw an underneath short route that gets picked off? Who makes that big play? Which quarterback of the defense has the best day? That's something I'm going to be excited to see in this matchup here. According to ESPN's FPI, Oregon is power rated number 1. Penn State is 6th. When you look, or they're actually 7th. They're behind Texas, but not too far behind Texas. When you look at the odds from ESPN's FPI as to who's projected to win, Penn State's given a 51.9% chance to win this game. The last time this line was open, Penn State was favored by, I think, anywhere from 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 points. Line is no longer public. I would expect it to be 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 when it's re-released to the public after this weekend on Saturday. This is a very key game. It's going to be a very great game, an exciting matchup. I can't wait to watch it. Hopefully, I can be there. And if there's any connected Penn State people who watch this channel, I'd appreciate you if you can put in a good word for me in relationship to being able to get some type of media or sideline pass to this game. Maybe it's too late, but I have looked into it, I've applied to it, and I'm trying to be there as someone who can cover the sport for you all and for our growing audience. So thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Final thoughts that I would have on this game is that, given the style of play I've seen, where Northwestern was able to run a little bit on Oregon and also was able to slow down their rushing attack, and factoring that in with what I thought I knew about Oregon preseason and what I think I know about Penn State, mostly still based on preseason, because Northwestern would also be Penn State's toughest opponent. Oregon's actually played the tougher strength of schedule. I do think this is a very favorable matchup for Penn State, which circles back to my point of it's a must-win game. Not only by situation is it a must-win if you want to achieve your goals, but Penn State has the better rushing defense. They have the better rushing offense. I do not think their quarterback play is as poor as many would suggest, although I do believe Oregon's is that good. And I would lean Oregon at receiver right now, but I think there's a chance, based on what Penn State has, that they could also win the air attack too. This is a matchup where I'm not going to reveal my pick yet. Oregon has impressed me in the first few weeks. Penn State has not. All that being said, this is going to be a very hard game for Oregon to win. If they come out here and they win, we'll say something about Penn State, but if Oregon's able to win this game, I think you're potentially looking at Oregon winning the whole thing after a win like this in the spot that they are in. Thank you so much for watching this segment on College Football with Sam. Before we close out here, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this video around, comment your thoughts and analysis down below so I can read them and reply to them if I have the time. Members get priority replies, but I try to reply to everyone. And also hit the notification bell for the channel and also for any team playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, you can always super chat me in the comment section, but I prefer that you sign up as a paid member of the Patreon page or as a YouTube member, or that you can purchase some wonderful merchandise to represent us. I'll see you all soon and have a fantastic day.